I gotta wait. How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
Welcome to the share, where Miss Dream always has a story.
I'm Dream, a black woman with many beautiful interconnecting identities. A few I will name at this moment as we get started on this podcast journey together. A Bostonian, born and raised in the inner city, Dorchester and Roxbury neighborhoods, to a teenage single mother who has my whole heart. An educator, I've been working with youth and children since my teenage years, and formally, I have been teaching almost a decade now. That's wild to think about. An entrepreneur, I am the founder of The Chair, a black and brown centered tech platform dedicated to supporting people on their hair journey, where you can design hair boards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a more joyous experience. I have a workable site, my prototype. It took me 2 years to build, and now I'm on this adventure that you're currently on with me. My goal for this podcast is to share stories, black stories, educator stories, entrepreneurship stories, and hair stories. I want you to leave each episode with the opportunity to gain new insight, just a glimpse into my world or the worlds that are featured on my podcasts, a little chuckle during your day or night, possibly a little anger to encourage you to advocate for justice, and hope to continue learning and dreaming. So come in and listen to the beautiful voices in the chair as they share their stories, starting with me.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Steve. Steve, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, beautiful people. This is Steve Derazinski, former adjunct faculty at Babson, teaching various new venture creation courses. I have a background in engineering and MBA, and I've been starting up companies and mentoring people to start up companies in the world of entrepreneurship in the greater Boston area for a long time. We don't need to say how long. More than a few decades.
I met Steve. I was a student of his. I took his blockchain venture course because of Steve. He's the one who planted the seeds for the creation of the chair. So I knew about crypto, but then I was reading about blockchain, and then I saw the course and I was like, oh, blockchain is socialism. And as y'all know, I'm an educator in business school trying to uncover racism, how to understand systems of racism. And I thought his class would help me think about business and socialism in a different way. And so that's how I ended up in Steve's class. And
Interesting that you say blockchain is socialism, because most people think blockchain as cryptocurrency as total libertarian scam and scam coins and stuff and like hardcore capitalism. But I'm glad you have that view, because I see blockchain as a tool that could be used for anything, and it could be used to enable interesting organizations, and if you want to put labels on them of capitalist organizations or socialist organizations, that's fine. But I'm hopeful that we can create new types of organizations that don't exist today with the tools that have been invented on chain.
Right? Yeah, because for me, according to the dictionary, socialism is a political and economic theory of social organizations which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. And then that first day of blockchain class, and you said, hey, everybody can have a piece of the blockchain and you can be able to have access. So for me, I'm like, oh, this thing is more accessible when we think across class,
Yep.
when we think across race. All you needed was internet access and the ability to read. And so for me, I was like, okay, I am interested. And so I came into class being like, yes, this is what I want to learn. And then when you separated us into groups and you said, hey, all of you have to pick a group and think about something that you wanted to build that takes the blockchain to another level. And you were like, hey, people always go for real estate, people go for crypto. Maybe you could think about something different. And then there was a group of us who were like, let's think about the blockchain in this social way. And we landed on grant making and thinking about how can we make the system of grants more accessible to everybody. And that was the beginning where all you kept doing, you kept asking questions like, what part of the grant making system are you trying to make better? And we were like, okay, well, if all grants were really on the same schedule, this would be easier. If we knew all the deadlines, this would be easier. A lot of questions are always repeated. This would be easier. And you just kept asking us questions about, okay, what does it look like with this? Why this way? And I felt like it was the beginning of a conversation of being able to think about how can the blockchain really help the grant making process.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great class. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. And so it was the beginning. But in that process, I was like, where are all the black people? and I remember you said to me, you said, Dream, you have to think of an issue that is important in that community and then think about how it could translate onto the blockchain.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. And at the time, I was protesting and advocating against police brutality. And I was like, okay, I don't want to focus on that because that's going to make me sad all the time. And at the same time, I was having all these conversations about hair. And so I brought it up to you, and then you said, hey, okay. And you were honest. You were like, I don't know anything about your world of black hair. You were like, I am a white man. I don't understand. But you said, I need you to interview people this summer, and I need you to find the problem. And I said, okay. But I was like, there are a lot of problems. But you said, just interview and then see if you can find the problems. And I interviewed 33 people that summer, and I came back. And you said, what do you find? I said, hey, here are all these problems. And you were like, okay, all those problems can't be solved on the blockchain. You said, I don't think you have a blockchain issue. I think you have a platform issue. That was the beginning of me really learning what it meant to begin to build a platform, even without a background in computer science or coding or engineering. And that was your world, but you still encouraged me to build without that background.
Where we share stories in the chair.
Look, it's my commercial. We will be right back.
It's more than just a bad hair day. It's a journey. Finding the right hairstyle isn't easy, nor is finding the right stylist or the right products. Looking in every corner of the web gets messy, overwhelming, and exhausting. All the ads, the articles, the products, the videos, it shouldn't be this hard, but it is. And now, it isn't. The Chair. A black and brown centered platform where you can design hair boards, connect to hairstylists, and share hair care tips for a new, joyful path on your hair journey. Avoid the clutter, save yourself hours, months, and even years of research and poor trial and error. Everything you need and only what you need is in one place. Hair boards made by people like you, for you. Find the right products, the right people, the right answers for you, stress-free. Join the Chair community and make every day a great hair day. When you share your pain, you allow others to help you. And when you share your success, you help others get theirs. Lean on the Chair. We got you. No stress, no strife. In the chair, the chair, the chair. All right.
Ultimately, entrepreneurship is about finding a community that has a problem that's not being solved or maybe being solved poorly and solving it. Like that's kind of, and since I'm a trained engineer, that kind of comes naturally to me. So I don't like to put constraints around like, well, you don't have this degree or you don't have this credential, so you shouldn't try and solve that problem. Like, no, just once you figure out what the problem is, there's a lot of other people who don't know that problem. And if you say like, hey, I need some help solving this problem, they'll be like, oh, that's a problem and my tools can help fix it. Great. Let's go do it. Let's go like build it and figure out how to solve it. The fact that it's not blockchain may or may not help, but it seems like an overkill for what the problem is, was a good thing, because then there's a lot more people that don't know blockchain that do know blockchain. So there should be a lot more resources for you to tap into. But ultimately, that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's not about necessarily being specifically knowledgeable in any one area and being a tech person or a CS major or whatever. It's just about understanding the market or understanding the community and being able to provide products and services that meet the needs of the community.
For you, how did you enter into your world of tech and engineering and entrepreneurship?
Well, I mean, I've always been an engineer. I was raised by a PhD in mechanical engineering, so the kind of positioning of everything being a problem to be solved was not only fed to me, but sort of came naturally. So I just, you know how when you look back in your earlier life, you realize that certain things gave you joy, or if it could just be clinical, give you a dopamine rush, right? I found early on that when I solved puzzles or solved math equations, I'd get excited, and I don't mind admitting it. I wear a T-shirt that says "Nerd Pride" all the time, so I'm not I'm not shy about it. But that whole like solving problems and solving problems on your own is a certain excitement, but then solving someone else's problem and seeing the joy in their face, that's like, okay, this is awesome. This is what I need to do. And then adding, the fact that they're like, not only is this fantastic, but here's money because you solved my problem. That's just a wonderful place to be. And I guess that sort of flies in the face of kind of what people typically think of as entrepreneurs, which are just like sleazy salespeople, like trying to shove a terrible product down your throat and get you to pay too much for it. If you turn that completely 180 and you say, no, I'm trying to solve people's problems, and they're such big problems that they're willing to pay money for it, and that becomes a much nicer world to live in, basically a much nicer entrepreneurial world to live in, right? And if you find you're not solving their problems, or they're like, yeah, that's a problem, but it's not that big of a problem, then you pivot and you find something else to solve. You keep divining and trying to find that problem. So I've told you before that I love the phrase hair journey in all of the stuff that you describe, but I see entrepreneurship as a journey as well. So, and there's a great phrase in the world of entrepreneurship that says, you don't know what business you're in until you're in business. I guess it's not that great of a phrase because it really doesn't make any sense until you explain it, which is basically like, you have to say like, this is my thesis, this is what I'm going after. And then you start doing business and then you realize this is not working and you have to pivot into a different one. And you, through that entire journey, you uncover more and more of the customers that you're trying to address, and you find repeatable products that work for them. But you can't do that by sitting in a chair by yourself and just thinking about it. You have to engage, and you have to like honestly try and sell somebody a real product. You can fictitiously try and sell, you can say like, what if I sold you this? What would you say? You can divide, that's fine. That's all background research. But until you're actually in business and you're like, here's a bunch of products I made through money, blood, sweat, and tears, and would you buy them? And they say no over and over and over again. You realize, okay, that's wrong. Let me try again. What don't you like about these products? What do you like about these products? And when you iterate on that and fix that and then go around again, and you start to find that what's the magical phrase is product market fit, right? Where you've got a product and the market wants it and is willing to pay for it. That's when the process really starts to sing. I don't think they teach that enough, that whole like, you have to get out in the marketplace and try it. Maybe it's because you don't actually really try it until you really feel like you honestly feel like this is it. I've got a product. I'm going to sell it. And then it doesn't work because then it's real. Then that learning is deeply real. You deeply understand that.
I'm very aware that in the business and tech world, I was always talking to white men 99% of the time. And talking to you as a white man, it was no different. The thing though, just like you said earlier, you were always just focused on how to think about the problem, even if you didn't really understand the details. And so I'm wondering, when did you start noticing your whiteness in your business spaces, in your entrepreneurship spaces?
Noticing my whiteness. That's super loaded, Dream, but I guess that makes it a good podcast. So I mean, noticing my whiteness, noticing my privilege, noticing my maleness, noticing my educational, pedigree, noticing, all of those things is really, really hard to pinpoint sort of when, because when things happen to you and they happen well, you can second guess things. You can be like, well, I just got that because I was the white guy in the group or whatever. I just, or you can say like, well, they just gave it to me because I have this, I have this pedigree, I have this great degree from, prestigious institution or whatever. Or you can say, no, I'm honestly the best candidate. I really so I don't really know. I don't really know when that came about. I thought you were gonna, but if I go sort of not necessarily in the tech business world, but go like deeper, like way back,
Mm-hmm.
when I discovered that there was race and there was other races other than mine, because I grew up in a pretty white neighborhood. It was actually in kindergarten when we had some Vietnamese refugees come in our kindergarten, and it was like, oh, these are people from another country. I don't even know where Vietnam is. I don't even know that they speak a different language. And I remember there was kids that didn't look like all the rest of the kids in the class. But we, luckily our teacher was like, hey, these are people that are refugees. We need to help them. We need to help them learn, help them understand stuff. And I think the kid that was in my class didn't speak a lick of English when he came over. So I'm sure it was extremely hard for him and extremely stressful for him, but he seemed like a nice kid. So I think we would do math projects together or something. His math was really good though. I remember that. But that was probably the first time I kind of recognized that
And
there are races and there are different people.
and then how did it develop then? From kindergarten to high school, you end up going to MIT. What did it look like? Because you can talk about, when you said earlier, you could talk about nerd pride. So you're just hyper aware of your intellectual abilities. And then you're hyper aware that you're a smart man who likes engineering. You start noticing those pieces.
Yep.
So how did you start noticing whiteness along the way?
So I don't know if it's kind of weird actually, because I remember one time, I think I was in third or fourth grade, I had a group of friends and I would tell my parents at dinner about my group of friends, and I would just refer to them by name. And then it wasn't till years later that my mom was talking to like her friend, and she's like, yeah, Steve had a group of friends and I had no idea that one of them was black until I met them.
Mm.
And she told that to me, and I was like, why would I tell you they're black? What does that matter? It was just like a friend that was in my friend group. So I don't know. That sort of struck me as like, oh, was that something I was supposed to report to you on?
Mm.
Was that required to be like described in the daily dinner? I didn't know that. So now I know. Okay, I'll be sure to report on that next time.
No, that's interesting. During 2020, I was in this book club, and it was run by my anthropology professor, Professor Holly Swires. And the book
Yeah.
club was predominantly white women. There was a couple of white men, there was me and another woman of color. And I purposely joined this book club because there were so many white women, because I wanted to be
Uh huh.
able to understand their perspective a little better. And a conversation came up that I will think about for the rest of my life. And we were talking about race, gender that day. And I asked the question, I said, who do you talk about at your dinner table? And I gave an example. I'm like, we talk about everybody at our dinner table. We talk about white people at our dinner table. We talk about our neighbors down the street. We talk about every group of people at our dinner table. And I learned
Hmm.
that day that all of those white women in that book club never talked about people of color unless they were on the news. And that is why they talked about George Floyd, because it was always on the news. And so anytime
Yeah.
they talked about a person of color, it was because it was some negative connotation or some sad connotation on the news. And I was like, are other people not as important at your dinner table as white people? So thinking about that aspect, like I wonder if that is where your mom was coming from, or when you engaged with people of color, did you have to have a reason to engage with people of color? Oh, and if you're interested to learn more about my experiences as a Black woman and educator in Guangzhou, China, I wrote my first ebook titled Nowhere and Everywhere: Captured Emotions of a Beautifully Broken Love Story. It is on lulu.com. Take a read and see some beautiful photography of mine. Enjoy the rest of the show.
When I engage with people of color, it's usually in a business or a tech setting, and it's usually around. And I can't, I guess the reason why gets obviously it's a lot more complicated, but kind of being a tech nerd, you can't really talk about being a tech nerd without talking about people on the spectrum. When you think about people on the spectrum, and if I'm in a group of people that are all tech nerds of all different races, we all share the same sort of nerd pride, which is going back to that aspect. And so we're usually talking about a problem, right? We're talking about some engineering problem or a structural problem, or the motor won't start or something. So we're trying to work the problem. So it doesn't necessarily matter if people don't have a tech background in that setting, then that's the bias that I bring to the table. It's like, okay, did you take calculus? And I don't care where you came from. Did you take calculus? Yes. Okay, good. Let's work on this calculus problem. That becomes more of a bias. And so it's, if I can sort of confess, I realize over the years that I definitely have a tech bias. Like if people have more of a tech background, I will hire them. If they have an MIT degree, I will probably hire them to work for me or work with me. And frankly, if people have engineering degrees, I'll probably work for them because I can communicate with them, and I can bond because I know the background that they've had, right? I know the schooling that they've had. I can communicate at with those sort of really basic algebra, whatever, circuit theory, basic physics level, and I know that there's a commonality there. So that it's kind of funny, like, and I know MIT has always had a wonderful diverse, or they've tried to have as diverse and a gender balanced kind of classes that they've admitted over the years. So I always use that as kind of the metric of like, okay, well, I'm not going to question MIT admissions policy, so I'm just going to say, okay, all these people that are here are all smart, so I want to engage with all of them, regardless of gender or gender orientation or race or anything. Just they're all here, so let's get together and talk, and let's get together and figure out how we're going to solve this problem, or start this company, or raise capital for this new venture, whatever it is. I don't think I ever told you this, Dream, but my company I started in 2008, my co-founder was Black and was a PhD from MIT. We used to travel all over the place together and go raise capital and pitch a bunch of investors and stuff. And now looking back on it, I realized there were several meetings we went to where he was uncomfortable, and I never addressed it. I never really understood why, but I mean, now I understand why. And there were several times we went down to DC, to go talk to whatever agency down there, and there was a lot of meetings where there were people that were uncomfortable with engaging with him. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you people? Like, we're just trying to get this stuff done here. We have this great technology. We're trying to get it commercialized. Like, that's the focus. Like, throw all the rest of that crap out. Like, I don't want to talk to you if you've got other issues. So I guess I've always been, let's work the problem here, people. Like, let's but I guess that just sort of drives through to like, stop. It doesn't matter if you have interpersonal issues, if you just don't like each other, if you're two white guys who don't like each other, like, shut up and get the job done. That's always been kind of the primary approach, and the rest of the stuff was sort of secondary, which means that sometimes we need to call in HR to solve some of the problems, but that's how it is.
No, I think with that thought, there's a lot of privilege there, being like, oh, if race isn't the first conversation that you're having, if race isn't the first thing that people are looking at, right, then you don't have to pay attention to that. You're like, hey, the problem is what we're doing, while your co-founder is walking in and they're like, oh, it's a Black man. Just like what your mother said, oh, he does have a Black friend. Like, now it's a talking point, and you're like, wait, why is this a talking point, right? So being able to say, well, if you're white, no one is walking into the room with you saying like, oh, there goes that white man. Let's highlight all our biases and our assumptions with this white man. But it's happening more with your co-founder at the time. But I'm curious though. I did not go to MIT. I do not have a background in engineering or computer science, but you still helped me. Why?
Because you asked, and because you showed initiative, and because you're persistent. So, and because you like decided to take my class, and you're like, maybe you were complimentary. I don't know what. I don't know, Dream. You gotta branch out on these things, right? And also because I was like, wait, black women's hair. I know absolutely nothing about that. I'm going to learn something interesting here. This is going to be cool. So that was also part of it too. It's like certain areas where you're just like, in my entire life, I've seen black women's hair. I've seen how incredibly long it can be and amazing, but I have no idea what goes into it. And so I learned a lot. I learned a lot of stuff about the entire Sundays you spend on your hair. That's insane. I mean, I go in and if it takes more than 15 minutes, I'm like, I got stuff I got to do. Come on, let's go. Just cut the stuff off. Let's go. So is that a privilege, or am I losing out because I don't have that entire day to sort of bond with my community? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. Right now, since I've lived my whole life with 15-minute haircuts, it seems like I would get frustrated.
No, yeah, it's a different world. There is beauty in being able to have a hairstyle that takes 9 hours to do. There's beauty in getting it chopped off. There's beauty in the 2-hour hairstyle. And there's so much that's connected when it comes to identity and hair and just self-love and appreciation. And the fact that there's so much community around it. Every state I go to, every country I go to, if I meet a black person and I need to get my hair done, I know that there is a world that I'm connecting to there. And that is one of the most beautiful and magical things. Sure, is it annoying that it is long? Yes. Is it frustrating that it takes all day? Yes. And it's a part of my world.
Yeah, I guess if it's that's the way I would think of it. But I imagine if I had grown up with it, I would be like, oh, today I get to spend all day. Yay, I get to spend all day doing this and engaging with all the people in the community.
Of course, sometimes it's not like that. Kids want to still play outside, and if your Sunday is now a wash day, you're kind of a little annoyed that you can't go outside and play with your friends today. All of that stuff is still very much real, but you learn that it's a part of your routine, or you change your routine.
Yep.
People lock their hair so they can have more time. People shave it all off so they can have more time. Well, Steve, thank you so much for sitting in the chair and sharing your stories. I truly appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate all your nice comments about the class. You remember a lot more about it than I do. So I'm going to have to call you in to be a TA the next time I teach the class, whenever that be.
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dream always has a story.
Thank you for listening to an episode of The Chair. I, of course, would love your continued support. Let me know what you think of this episode by doing all the things. Subscribe, comment, and come back next week, every week. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful day. Or if you are like me, enjoy that moonlight and that one star under all your city lights. Love you. Talk to you later.
The chair.
How long I gotta wait for a press record?
Go.
We support her. Shit.
Do your...
Welcome to the chair, where Miss Dream always has a story. Where we share